Welcome back to the Real Estate and Small Business for Management Consultant Show. I'm your host, Cristian Carrillo. Today, we've got a very, very special interview for you folks. Our guest is Ken Van Liew. Thank you for being on the show, Ken. It really, really is a pleasure to have you on.
Likewise, it's a pleasure. We've been trying to connect for so long, and here we are. Ready to bring value, man. Love it. Love it.
Excellent. So, author, educator, engineer, and one of Manhattan's most successful real estate experts, Ken Van Liew has garnered international praise for his work in various facets of the building trade. Over the years, Ken has managed the syndication and development of numerous high-profile real estate developments totaling, get this, more than $1.3 billion in capital investment. Ken holds master's degrees in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology and in real estate development from NYU. In addition, he has lectured at the Real Estate Institute, New York University, and College of Engineering, Rutgers University, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Modern Wealth Building Formula. Ken, again, I know you needed no introduction, but welcome to the show, my friend. We're very grateful for your time.
You know, it's real exciting. You know, I wish I was ahead of the game like you are at such a young age. But since the first time I met you, you've impressed me, and I'm here to pay it forward. So anything I could do to add value, start cracking the whip here, ask some questions, whatever we can. Love to tell you my story and inspire people. So, we leave them touched, moved, and inspired to the next step in their life,
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken, to me, you are literally the definition of an entrepreneur, right? I think you've hit these pinnacles of success, and I want our listeners to get to know a little bit more about you, right? Because you're one of the most famous developers in New York City, right? So you haven't always been there. And from knowing your amazing story, I know it's been ups and downs to get to where you are. So I'd love it if you could tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, well, one of my philosophies is, in New York, if you fly below the radar, there's a heck of a lot of crumbs you can grab, with guys like Donald Trump and, all the big guys, Rudin and Zeckendorf, that make the papers. But, New York was good. I worked for a lot of the big developers, and I had a chance to develop one of my own projects, a 30-story building on 19th and Park Avenue. It all started, with a job, working as a construction guy, wanting to be a civil engineer, but I couldn't, I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed when I first started. So plus the engineering process, takes a little while. You have to go through and get 4 years experience before you could even take the test. And by the time I was taking the test, I was into construction. I was rusty. I couldn't pass the test. By the time I finally passed the test, I was building skyscrapers, and I really never looked back. I just was fortunate. And, one day I was standing on top of a 30-story building, looking out at the World Trade Center. And I just had twins. And I was like, something's not making sense here. I'm 6 figures in debt, but I'm standing on top of the skyscraper. I need to do this for myself. And that was the first time I really said, what do I do to get involved in real estate? I knew how to build a project. And what kept me up late at night, which we were joking about, was I figured out 9 ways to earn fees in real estate development. So I'm saying to myself, I could just get a $10 million project in the pipeline. I could pay myself like 18% fees just because I have some background, and it really just drove me to my first development, which was that $17 million project with no real experience in real estate and no money. I had a builder's background, which tells you, whether you're a builder, an accountant, or a finance major, or a clerk of the works, you don't even need an education because, real estate isn't rocket science. And, I guess I learned, you could say, from the top down, no pun intended, but, that led to, 1 year doing 137 residential deals and realizing that, you could be this big king of skyscrapers, commercial, big rig, but, if you want to pay it forward, you got to get down and start with the guys that are getting started and understand, hey, what's the tax advantages that I could get from starting an LLC? And, what's the benefit of starting a small business? And, and you're out there promoting it, that's what it's all about, that's a little icing for the cake there. So let's dive in and have a slice.
No, that's amazing, Kenan. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, I'm curious to know a little bit more about your story, right? You're going to these amazing schools. You've got what I believe to be some of the most difficult, degrees to get out there. At what point did you decide, okay, real estate entrepreneurship is a route that I'm going to pursue? Because, with your qualifications, you could have easily gone to a corporate job and been successful there as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I wouldn't say I didn't get the right guidance. My dad climbed telephone poles for an electrical company, and my mom was a bank teller, and they just said, go to school. And I started off slow and I felt behind. So I just kept going and going and going. Next thing you know, I'm 35. I have all these degrees. And, I sat there and I'm like, okay, you're in debt. You have all these degrees. Once again, something's not, the math isn't adding up, I know I could utilize this education to make money, but, there's something missing, and I always looked at what's missing could be that one thing that's going to make a big difference if you just put it in place. It wasn't that anything was wrong, all the components were there in the equation. As to solve equations, there's many variables. It was just a matter of going back, to the calculator here and going, okay, here's the new variables. I can, continue. By that time, I was a senior vice president. I had built for some of the largest developers. I could have went EVP. My dear friend who we built Brooklyn Union Gas together is building the World Trade Center for Larry Silverstein right now. My other best friend, Pete Marchetto, president of Tishman. My other friend, president of Stockholm Construction, another Suffolk Construction, another huge. So all my buddies that we were together are all at the top of the game, and I could have been there with them. But, I had a dream, just to kind of, be on my own and be with my family, be with my twins, when it all happened. And, I had to make a choice, and it was hard because with those credentials, you see these job offers, pay you $300,000. I made a lot, when I had those degrees, it was always minimum 250, they pay you a nice salary, you get a fat bonus. It's hard to walk away from those jobs too, and, you really have to say, is it about the money, which a lot of times it is? Is it about the time, like waking up at 5 and going to New York City every single day and then going to school at night till midnight every night for 30 years? I wouldn't say you got bored. It was a deep thinking, which is needed. But at a certain point, you're going to go, how do I take that and pay it forward? You just can't keep grinding. And a lot of that, some of those 30 years, excuse me, was for myself. But, during the transition, there was a time I was doing consulting up to, probably 5 years ago, charging huge money on a monthly basis, doing the consulting, doing the small business, doing, dabbling in little things, doing the real estate. Small business, my small business was the construction management. I do some third-party deals and stuff like that. So it's all a process, it's about time blocking and, and diligence in yourself and, and being organized and having accountability in place and just, hitting it hard every day,
Yeah, no, that's exception, right? I think you hit something that I sort of want to touch on. You talk about these long days, right? Waking up at 5, working all day, going through the night, and you have this vision of what you can accomplish. And I feel like to be able to do that, you have to have a strong enough why,
Yeah.
right? And this is something that we talk to a lot of people about. What is your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do what you do? What kept you going? Because, I'm sure you've hit your ups and downs, and, at least when I go through that myself, there are times where I'm thinking, should I just quit? Right. But then your why always pushes you and propels you to that next level. So Ken, if you don't mind, what has pushed you to keep going?
You're going to laugh at me here, but I this is something that I've been saying since Um, I think it's 2001 when I was with Tony Robbins in Hawaii just before the towers collapsed. And it goes a little like this. I am integrity, an honest and loving leader with magical empowering skills to create endless opportunities for all mankind and to leave everybody I meet with power, freedom, self-expression, and peace of mind.
Wow.
And, you know, if I can accomplish that with everybody, they're going to be successful in business. They're going to have a good family. They're going to be spiritually connected. And that's what it takes.
Yeah, no, I love that, Ken. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I always like to say that what you put out into the world, you receive, right? So I can see why you've been so successful in your career.
Yeah, you know, it took a while to learn that, you know, but you know, and then, you know, of course my why is, you know, I'm still with the same woman after, you know, we've been married 34 years together now, 39 years. You know, my kids, you know, just are absolutely amazing. My son just got engaged, you know, he's already has 2 tours, U.S. intelligence officer, almost a major. Was talking to the head of Homeland Security this week, the FBI, all kinds of crazy stuff. The girls are getting married, you know, the wife is still delighted with me. And, you know, we have some extraordinary projects going on. So, you know, it's like an empty nest. I've been, you know, one of my hobbies is magic. So I'm always doing magic and bringing magic into people's lives, keeping it in my life. And, you know, that's what it's all about, you know?
I love that, Ken. I love that. And you know, now that you speak about projects,
Yeah.
you started off doing residential projects, correct? And you moved into more commercial projects. Is that how that worked for you?
You know, I actually learned in reverse. And I know I think someone wrote once upon a time that they thought I started with fixing and flipping and then moved in. But I actually, you know, when I was 20, I don't know, 3 years old, my first building was like 32 units, 6-story building in Poughkeepsie. And then my next building was 2 33-story skyscrapers on the water for the LEFRAC organization. And then that led to many, many skyscrapers after that. But by 26, I had over 1,000 units under my belt. It wasn't until 2000, you know, it wasn't until actually where I really got into residential and proved my formula worked for residential was in 2015 when we founded, it was an offshoot of Flipping New Jersey. We created Flipping USA, and we did 137 residential deals in 1 year.
Wow.
So I actually learned in reverse. And didn't start doing any stick building is what I would consider it until about 2008. After the you know, just before, I think it was just before the Lehman crash, 2005, 6, you know, I had did well in New York City. We built a transit village in Union next to Keene University, you may have heard of. It was 52 or 56 condo units, a hotel, jump on out of your bed onto the train and take it to New York City. And that was my first stick build. And I looked and I was like, wow, I've been in construction for like 30 years and I never built anything out of wood. I was like, you know, this is pretty simple, you know? So I did houses for a while, and then, you know, because my assisted living was prefab metal stud, you know, reinforced concrete slabs that we precasted. And, you know, we did houses for a while. You know, I was buying a bunch of stuff in Newark, and then I got bored, and I think it was then by 2008, I was back in the city and we were building skyscrapers just before the crash. But I may have my years a little bit off, but yeah, it was early 2000s into 5 where we cracked the whole residential code. We then, for the first time, stick building. I didn't formulate it until like a formula until, of course, you know, like into 15, 16, which then I finally started to brew the book, and the book came out in 19. So it took a while, you know. I graduated high school in 79, you know, so yeah, you know, overnight success takes 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And so, Ken, two things I definitely want to touch on. The first is 100 plus residential projects in 1 year. I think that's, I can't even imagine how you began to scale there. But then I also want to touch on your first development and sort of what that process was like. Because, you know, when I like look out my window and I see these tall skyscrapers, I sometimes imagine, you know, I wish I could build that myself. But you're out there, you're doing it, you know, in your early 20s, mid 20s, and so on, and you're still doing it today. So why don't we dive into that first development? Like, at what point did you say, okay, I'm going after this? How in the world did you accomplish that?
Yeah. It was probably 1997 where I had, I had the twins in 92. So, and then 5 years later, because we had Clomid twins, we had fertility issues. We had a third, and I was like, oh, I got to do something. 97, I think, was when I formed KJV Development. It then took a couple of years to get the courage up. I think I left my job in, I think it was early 98 or something like that. I guess threw my hat over the fence based on fees, right? Because I don't know that I understood enough about real estate. I studied real estate development in my master's program. I wasn't heavy in the finance. So I wasn't an underwriting expert. I wasn't sitting there going, all I need is to buy 100 units and I'll have residual income and all that kind of stuff. I was just like, get a $10 million project in the pipeline, keep a little ownership and build it, pay yourself 5% development fee, 8% general conditions, and 3% CM fee, and you're golden. And that's exactly what I did. I plugged a $10 million project in. It was an assisted living. It ended up being a little bit more. I signed my first development agreement with myself. I think I opened my company. It was like in March. By November, I had approval on a 7-acre site that I had acquired with no money down through a dentist that had a certificate of need that I found out of the blue, only knowing how to call architects and engineers and ask them, hey, you got any sites to develop? Do you have any sites to develop? And I literally signed an LOI on a piece of paper, followed up by a contract, gave him $25,000 of 100 grand that I had borrowed from a guy that I met at my country club, telling him a story. You may have heard that story, you may not have. And I took control of this site with no money down. 6 months later, had the approval, jumped through hoops, hurdles, everything to close a municipal bond loan with the New Jersey EDA for $17 million and literally start and break ground on a 113-bed assisted living. I didn't even know what I was doing 8 months before that, and I figured it out. The guy said, I said, a certificate of what? He said, certificate of need. I could build 113 beds. I'm like, here, let's just sign it. I'll figure it out. Let's do it. I mean, I know how to build. I built 1,200 units. I'm like, okay, it's a smaller apartment with a kitchenette. I'm good. But that's how it started. I literally locked it up, got the approval, signed a development agreement with myself, and was paying myself $27,000 a month right out of the box. And I essentially never looked back. I realized a year into that I didn't want to go into the assisted living business because I needed a critical mass. I didn't have like a director of business development. I didn't have director of marketing to run. I had retained Meridian Healthcare Systems to manage the facility. And then I eventually established an exit strategy, stayed into the geriatrics facility after that and realized, real estate was what I wanted to be in, not assisted living. And, here I am today, but it was exciting, really, really exciting.
That's awesome, Kenny. Congratulations. They're definitely familiar with the projects you've been working on. I think they're incredible. So my question for you, how in the world did you not get caught in analysis paralysis, right? If I'm taking this huge project, you're an action taker, and I've known you for quite some time now, and I know you're an action taker, but how did you get around that? I feel like some of us, maybe sometimes we get stuck in that. We got to read one more book. We got to listen to one more podcast. How did you get through that?
The funny thing is, I don't think I slept. So I had tremendous analysis paralysis, but I tell you, I would analyze stuff all night long and just like not sleep. But I don't take pride in it. I now wear a sleep ring. I've studied sleep and I force myself to sleep. But like when I wrote the book, I think I was down to like 4 hours a night. It was kind of crazy, but through my career for 30 years, it was 5 hours a night. I was in analysis paralysis, and I guess just that one day, I must have had enough courage to say, hey, if I can build this skyscraper for somebody else, I could build a $10 million project for myself, because the skyscraper I was standing on was $100 million, and I was the supervisor of the whole project. And I'm like, like, there isn't anything else I could do, and after that, I think, it was funny because when that happened, that was in like 96. It still took me 1 year to start the company, 2 years to jump out. Because I think it was the beginning of 99 when I jumped out, and so I was probably stuck. That was a lot of the paralysis analysis, what if, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And during that time, I built another building. I built the E911 headquarters, so now I was supervisor of a 30-story, and then I just built the E911 headquarters that had, like a data center that would make your head spin, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for anything now. But, that's how it started,
No, that's amazing. So, Ken, now that we've talked a little bit about your accomplishments and sort of how you structured your day, you mentioned time blocking. I'd love to know a little bit more about your daily routine, right? I often hear folks saying, I don't have enough time in the day, right? And you and I, we've had this conversation before where it's, have you ever tried time blocking, right? And what a difference that can make in your life. I'd love to hear more about your daily routine and what has helped you become successful.
Yeah. I kind of have the similar routine. I just don't wake up at 5 anymore. I get up at 6 now. But the first thing I do is I do a quick ready, get ready with some, some prayers, and then I move for 15 minutes, some type of exercise. And then after that, I freshen up, and I do some deep thinking, normally till about 9 o'clock. I don't really turn off my my notifications. I don't turn on my notifications till about 9. And then at 9, I'm very laser missile with one of the 3 outcomes that I want, and a lot of times it's communicating or some type of quick little huddle or brief meeting with critical players on my team. And then each day I start off by, writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm looking down at my thing, what my goals are for today. And then the 3 aspects of essentially my life every day are business, health and fitness, and relationships. So in those 3 areas, I'm always focused on outcomes, and my goals are usually predicated around those 3 areas. And then I write down 4 things that would make it a great day today. It doesn't necessarily have to be that goal. It'll just make it a great day. It could be something really, really simple. And with that thought process, I have time blocked. Now there's things that are automatically blocking my schedule, but I'll block out some key hours after a morning ritual. And I don't, I don't do it like I used to. I used to be back to back to back. I now try to keep a half hour. I've tried to civilize things because I learned something that in recent years, with all of the distractions, it's very easy to get sucked into what I call a shallow work, where you're like, putzing around with your email and, looking at Facebook. And I don't do any of that stuff, right? I just don't do it. Like, people handle all that stuff for me. And I spend a couple key, like today, I have to write a specific email to Noel Randall. That's very important about an ecosystem merge. I have to speak to my planner about the project guidelines for Lewisburg, because, we have to make a submission to the planner so I can look at it. So I'm very laser missile at things that people can't do, try to pick up things, that are missing. So my time blocking is done very like ritualistic every day. It's like critical, like the time blocking is not there. And I also use the Pomodoro method here. So like I lock myself in for 20 minutes, right? And then what I recently added in after reading a book called Deep Work, which I thought was one of the best books that I've read in a long time, because I realized that's how I got here. I started an evening ritual, which is just one little brief session of some more gratitude, and to think about what outcomes, what did I leave any outcome undone today? I measure which I measure how did my as built versus my as planned versus as built go, essentially. How did my as planned day, and then I measure my personal and business. So, how did I do on a scale from 1 to 10? I quality quantify. I got an 8. It would have been a 9 if I did this. It would have been a 10 if I did this. Personal, same thing, 7 out of 10. Hey, I didn't connect with Terry. I didn't talk to my son. So you always quality quantify. So the measuring's big in the evening ritual, and then get a good night's sleep. Which I never did because I used to never sleep, and work 7 days a week, and I realized I could be just as productive by doing deep work, time blocking, and having some fun.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Isaac Newton says, if I see far, it is because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. I hope you all just absorb what Ken just mentioned, because I think it's incredibly important. And the fact that you embed, key performance indicators and continual process improvement in your life, that is amazing to me. That's amazing.
I don't want you to think I'm a nerd, but I have a chart for time blocking that shows you the percentage that you're doing for each thing. So like, I know, my spirituality, like, when I'm in church or when I'm doing something at the church, because the wheel of life includes spirituality. The wheel of life includes business, includes health, fitness, and that's all key. So if I'm not, I realized 30 years ago, if I only talk to my wife, 33 minutes a week, which is pretty easy when, back in the day when we were both working, we wouldn't get along. Now we're fortunate we get to talk a lot to each other, where she does her thing, I do my thing. But there, there's you could figure it out just by graphically looking at it, see where you're out of balance.
Yeah, no,
not that life is balanced, don't get me wrong, but you get to see where you're out of balance. You get to appreciate where you're out of balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. So Ken, before we dive into our quick response round, I want to talk about your best-selling piece, the modern wealth building formula.
Sure.
Can you tell us where the idea for, I'm very familiar with the book. Can you tell us where this came, like the idea came from, and like what you're trying to push in this masterpiece?
Yeah, great question. I had dabbled in that, informational marketing business, to realize, as Tony says, I am not a guru. But through dozens and dozens of personal training and courses, I was with my team, and we were just wrestling, and I think they were extracting information out of my head. And I was, Tony's always, take massive action. So I'm thinking massive action. And I was taking a landmark course called the Wisdom. And, I was like, this isn't about leadership. This is about bold leadership and forward thinking and that. And the guy's like, yeah, MBA, Modern Wealth Building Form. I was like, what? I was like, that's it. And like, we were in this session, and, it was a combination, and I got to give some credit. I forgot his name, from Visify, who brainstormed with me, and the acronym came up, and I was like, hey, that's it, the Modern Wealth Building Formula. If I were to name it again, I probably would have named it the Modern Wealth Millionaire Formula. But that's how it came out, and I guess it was me finally realizing, hey, I had this system which I coined as Find Fun to Facilitate when I created 8-figure deals with no money down after doing the assisted living back in 2008, after Lehman Brothers crashed and we lost $300 million in one day. And that's just kind of how it evolved there. I think I lost my train of thought, but so the Modern Wealth Building Formula really came out of that. And then it went out, and then I had just, kind of wanted to trial it out, check it out for residential. It worked for commercial. And next thing you know, it just came alive. I figured, after, one day, if I didn't write it, my head would just keep spinning with all this information, and I would never be able to be free thinking again. So that was my way of paying it forward, writing the book and, getting the message out there so people can learn about people like me that didn't have, any money, were capable of going to college or not going to college, getting a degree. I I created the 6-year plan. I really wasn't the college type. I was a jock. You know, I played football, but you know, I created a miracle. How did I build a $17 million project with no money? I did it. You know, I told some of my story. I created a gravitational pull. I attracted investors. I kept my word, you know, and without integrity, nothing works, you know, but, you know, it worked. And, you know, I thank my higher power, who I consider God, you know, who's there with me all the time. I was an altar boy. My mom had me walking down the aisle all the time, saying prayers, you know, and it rubbed off on me, you know, so it's a good thing.
No, that's exceptional, Ken. And thank you so much for that. I think that's very powerful. And it's really been a pleasure getting to know more about you and connecting again. And I'm sure that our listeners have picked up on some true golden nuggets. And I hopefully they take advantage of them as well, right? But are you ready for a quick response round?
Absolutely. And check out my golden, I actually have some golden nuggets on my website, you know, but we'll talk more about that in a few.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ken, first one here for you. If you lost it all today, what would you do?
You know, that's a great question. I'll tell you. So out of nothing, if you take nothing and you squeeze nothing, you can create something, you know, that's the beauty. So, you know, but the confusing thing is, I don't know if you knew this, but you know, if you're focused over here and you're not looking over here, this is kind of a lesson in misdirection. So then if I take this coin and you're looking over here, you're not looking over here, and you're actually not looking over here. So, but see, when I do this and then I flip it, I screw you up and you don't even see that. And then you're wondering, does this guy even have a coin at all? You know, and then, you know, it just kind of vanishes and you go back to nothing again. But I would do magic if I lost everything. All I need is a coin and a deck of cards. I'm good.
Wow. For folks that did not see that, please check out our YouTube video, because that I am mind blown that just happened. Ken, when did you get into this? Why don't you tell us?
You know, I entered my first magic contest when I was 12 years old. And it came from, you know, at Christmas time, watching magicians perform at, I believe it was like the Knights of Columbus that my grandfather belonged to or something. And, you know, I at 12 years old, I entered a contest and I called myself the Wizard. That led on to me actually dressing in tails with an assistant and doing an act to music with doves and fire and entertaining, doing children's birthday parties over here in college, doing close-up magic. And really, it's just a hobby and an art that sticks with you. You know, I have 300 magic books, 200 videos, thousands of dollars worth of magic. And, you know, I keep magic in my life and bring it into others and just give them a shared experience so they can have fun.
No, that's exceptional. I love that. I love that. Going forward, what do you have planned in your business and why?
Yeah, we have just locked up 45 acres in North Carolina. We have, it's including a hotel, self-storage, over 200 residential units, medical office building, wellness center. We're about ready to lock up another 17 acres, possibly another 100. So what I say is we're building some horizontal skyscrapers. We have the Larson's Turkey Farm in Chester, New Jersey, a famous site of 100 years, which are about ready to break ground on a CBS. We are going to have approval at the planning board in the next 60 days. We have commercial office on that site, affordable housing. And this year, I'm going to do the one thing that I found my poster board from my Tony Robbins event, Date with Destiny. The only thing I haven't really created is a REIT. So we're going to get more into securitized funding this year. Because we have such a volume of projects, and because of the book, you know, we have people bringing in projects, and like I always say, whatever we have to do to reduce friction, you know, we'll take those steps and make it easier.
I love that. Doing big things is always right. Congratulations, Ken.
Yeah.
So if you could give our listeners one piece of advice today, what would it be?
Wow. One piece of advice. You know, I would have to say that if you put your mind on something, you're going to accomplish it. And during the journey of wanting to accomplish that, just worry a lot less, because if I could count the hours that I worried about whether or not it was going to work, I could have probably made it work quicker, So, we all have fear. Our two primary fears are we're not enough and that we're going to fail, and that is something that just doesn't exist, right? Failure doesn't exist. You have to change your approach. And when you're feeling that you're not enough, it's most of the time because you're not surrounding yourself with someone that's better than you, or you're lacking some knowledge to see that next step. And in many cases, sometimes you can't see it. So you got to put the courage in there and just kick in and have faith. But that's my advice. Don't worry and just go out there and take it on, because you can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
Wow, that's very powerful. That's very powerful. Thank you for that, Ken.
Yes.
Last one here for you. How can our listeners get to know more about you and connect with you?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, just, I'm easy to get in touch with, and I'm serious here. I actually do sales calls. They're not really sales calls. I call them planning calls. But, I do tell you about my global real estate investment enterprise, which is a lifetime program we created for people that are interested in real estate. So you can get a planning call and schedule that right off my website at kenvanliew.com. And if you just want to get some golden nuggets or the 11 millionaire secrets, you can go to the 11millionairesecrets.com. That'll start you out a journey on what I found to be the 11 millionaire secrets. You'll also get a special report on the 60 pitfalls to avoid, right? Because it's all about avoiding the mistakes. And that's really it. I have created residential, commercial programs and packaged them into an enterprise based on tremendous studying, of course, all these master's degrees. But what I have studied and figured out is the runway for someone to take off for success in real estate. And the beauty of what I've learned and how it really applies to the show is that the modern wealth building formula, when you read it and you take out the words real estate, it applies for every small business in America. It's all about that pregame warm up and having those systems in place and being able to find, fund, and facilitate, right? Because you got to find the business that you want. You got to be able to fund the business that you want. And you got to be able to facilitate the business. And we all want to be able to become owners of the business, not operators of the business. So, that's like the 7th step to business, as my dear friend Carl Gould speaks about all the time, is really being able to step out of your business. So, and that's what it's all about. Some people like to stand it. I mean, I don't work that hard now, but I like engaging in a good conversation. Last week I walked the waterfront of Lewisburg and talked about developing the waterfront with the township planner. Like, that was fun for me, and traveling to Lewisburg, hanging out with my buddy, who's been my friend for 37 years, and having him be able to invest in some of the stuff I'm doing. And we get to reap the reward of, us finally, screwing our heads on straight,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that, Ken. J. Lauren Norris says, if you cannot see where you are going, ask someone who has been there before. So I think that that's incredibly powerful. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So Ken,
what a show.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure catching up, and thank you so much for your time. I'm sure listeners got so much out of this interview, and I hope we get to connect soon again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect, Ken. Thank you so much, and take care of yourself.
Likewise.